All right, so we're diving into something completely new today, kicking off our Dataset Features section here on the Computational Quran Studies Substack. And, you're here because you want to really get a good grasp on things. You don't like to mess around. You like to get right to it. And that's what we want to do with this whole series.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in this day and age, we're just bombarded with information all the time. And I think being able to quickly understand what matters and see how it all fits together is really powerful. And that's what we're going to be doing in this new section.
So, I mean, just think about how most of us engage with the Quran these days, right? You've got billions of people with smartphones. Islamic apps consistently rank, at the top of the charts. We're talking tens of millions of monthly active users on these things, right? Access to the Quran for reading and listening has become so straightforward.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, imagine trying to explain to someone a few decades ago that you could fit the entire Quran plus translations in your pocket.
Yeah.
It would sounded like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Totally. Yeah. And it's just become such a normal thing for so many people. But here's where things get really interesting, right? There's this big difference between like a user-friendly app and having data that you can actually really explore deeply, right? The kind of exploration you need for serious research or development.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like the difference between looking at a picture of a beautiful flower and having all of the biological data about that flower.
Hmm.
It's DNA, it's cellular structure.
Yeah.
The picture is great for appreciation, but the data unlocks a whole other level of understanding and analysis.
And that's what we're going to be digging into today, right? This idea of accessibility of Quran data for these deeper dives, because we have these amazing apps, but that doesn't mean that the underlying data is in a format that computers can easily work with, right? Like imagine trying to systematically study, the linguistic patterns across the entire Quran using a bunch of PDF files. That's a massive undertaking. It would be largely manual.
Yeah, it's really difficult. And I think that these formats, while perfectly fine for humans, present some real obstacles for people who want to use computational tools to go beyond just reading the text. And it really kind of limits what students and researchers and developers can do to enhance our understanding of the Quran using technology.
So that brings us to the central question of this deep dive, right? Which is also going to kind of set the stage for this whole dataset feature series. What do we mean by open Quran data, and why should you, even if you're not a tech expert, care about this at all?
Yeah, so at its heart, the definition is very simple. When we talk about open Quran data, we're talking about standardized, machine-readable versions of the Quran text that are accessible to anyone to use without proprietary restrictions.
Okay, so let's break that down a little bit, right? It's not just having like a digital copy. It's about having it in a format that a computer can easily process, right? It's something more structured than just like digital pictures of pages.
Exactly. It needs to be organized in a way that makes it easy for computers to use. So this could mean like simple text files where each verse is clearly marked, or more structured formats like JSON or XML. And you can think of those as like highly organized filing systems for digital information, where every piece of information has a specific label so it's easy to find and work with.
And the open part means there are no paywalls or restrictive licenses stopping people from using this for their own projects, right? Whether it's something personal or something they want to share with the community.
Exactly. The aim is to make this as freely and widely available as possible, to encourage collaboration and innovation without hurdles. And while additional information like, grammatical analysis or rhetorical tagging, those kinds of things are very valuable, our initial focus with open Quran data is really on that fundamental accessibility and usability by computers.
So why should this matter to someone like you listening who's interested in, understanding things thoroughly and efficiently? How does open Quran data benefit your personal study?
I think this is where it gets really interesting for the individual. So imagine taking notes in a system like Obsidian or Notion, which a lot of people use to organize their thoughts. With open Quran data, you can actually directly incorporate the text into your notes in a structured way. And this makes it easily searchable and connectable to your own insights and other research.
That's super useful. Instead of just copying and pasting text from somewhere which could have errors or whatever, you have this clean, computer-friendly version that just works seamlessly with your personal knowledge system.
Exactly, and it goes beyond just note-taking too. Open data opens the door to doing your own textual analysis on your computer. So there are tools that allow computers to understand language. This is what's called natural language processing, or NLP. And you can kind of think of this as teaching computers the nuances of human language. And this allows you to identify patterns in the Quranic text that maybe a human reader would miss. You can see how often certain words appear. You could identify recurring themes. You could even map out connections between different ideas
So you could run your own mini research project, basically, without being a coding expert or having to rely on complicated online platforms or anything like that.
Exactly. And then think about linking this with your own personal knowledge base. Imagine being able to automatically connect a verse you're studying to related hadith or scholarly interpretations that you've also stored digitally.
Uh-huh.
So this kind of cross-referencing becomes so much smoother.
Yeah, and you mentioned offline exploration too, which is really interesting with the rise of these local large language models, which are basically powerful AI language tools that run on your own computer. How does Open Quran data fit into that?
Yeah, well, if you have a local LLM, having the Quran in this machine-readable format would allow you to do things like compare different translations or ask very specific questions of the text or search for particular concepts even when you're offline. So it gives you a lot more privacy and independence in your study.
And for people who are more visual thinkers, right, the idea of creating custom visualizations of like Quranic structures or linguistic patterns, that sounds incredibly insightful. You could potentially see connections and relationships in a whole new way.
Absolutely. Imagine generating a visual representation of how long the verses are within a particular surah or mapping where specific root words appear throughout the entire Quran. So these kinds of things can offer really profound insights that you wouldn't be able to grasp just by reading the text.
Okay, so the advantages for personal study seem pretty clear, but what about the broader community? How does having open Quran data help in terms of like shared knowledge and resources?
I think this is where we see the potential for some really significant impact. So open data allows developers and researchers to build public web applications that can visualize Quranic insights on a large scale. And this makes, sophisticated analysis accessible to everyone, not just people with technical expertise.
So think like interactive dashboards where anyone can explore linguistic features or easily compare different translations side by side or delve into the structural patterns of the Quran. That would be a pretty incredible resource for everyone.
Exactly. And it also encourages collaboration in research. When researchers are all working from the same clean data sets, they can build on each other's findings a lot more easily and speed up the process of discovery. It removes that hurdle of everyone having to spend time cleaning and organizing data from scratch.
And what about educational tools? It seems like open data could lead to some really engaging and interactive ways for students to connect with the Quran on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And by having this open data, it means we avoid constantly reinventing the wheel. Instead of every individual or group needing to create their own basic data sets from scratch, they can build upon existing well-maintained resources. And this just fuels innovation because it allows people to focus their efforts on creating new insights and applications instead of doing that kind of foundational work over and over again.
Yeah. Okay, this is all perfect setup for this new Dataset Features series that we're launching here on the Computational Quran Studies Substack. So tell us a little bit more about what you envision for this section.
Yeah, so the fundamental idea behind Dataset Features is to really shed light on the existing world of open Quran datasets. So we want to explore what's out there, create a kind of catalog of these resources, and discuss both their strengths and, where applicable, their limitations.
So it's like a guide for anyone looking for this kind of data to help them understand the different options and what each dataset offers.
Exactly. And our aim is to raise awareness about these resources because they're often overlooked. There are a lot of great data sets out there, but they're not necessarily widely known or easily accessible. So we want to help bridge that gap.
And it's not just about showcasing what's already out there. You also mentioned encouraging the community to get involved with improving and expanding these data sets.
Absolutely. Creating high-quality open data is an ongoing process. We want to foster a sense of shared responsibility, encourage researchers, developers, and even individual learners to contribute to making these resources better, especially for languages and types of analysis that are underrepresented right now.
And each installment in this series will look at a specific data set or resource, examine its structure, what kind of information it contains, and the potential ways it can be used. You'll be offering practical advice too, right? On how to actually access and work with these resources and concrete examples of projects they could support.
That's right.
Good.
We don't want to just talk about why this is important. We want to provide clear, practical pathways for listeners to engage with this directly and offer tips and examples to make it less intimidating for newcomers.
So to bring it all together, the message here is that open Quran data opens up new and exciting ways to interact with the Quranic text, right? Both for your own personal growth and for the benefit of the wider community. It goes beyond the limitations of these standard reading apps that we're all used to. And this Dataset Features series is where we'll be exploring this in detail.
Yeah, exactly. It's about empowering individuals and fostering collaboration to deepen our understanding and appreciation of the Quran through computation.
So here's something to think about. Consider your own journey with the Quran. How might having access to the Quran in a format that computers can understand enhance your study? What questions have you always had about the text that you think could be explored with the right tools if they are readily available, even if you don't consider yourself a tech person right now? It's all about opening up new avenues for exploration and discovery, and we really encourage you to consider the possibilities as we dig deeper into this in the upcoming Dataset Features posts.
I think that's a great point to end on.
Yeah. All right. Until next time.
See you then.